So I'm here making pancakes. And they're not flour pancakes. They're mostly like fruits and stuff like that. Like plantains and coconuts. Stuff from around here. Chocolate nibs from around here too. And while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, how could I get to this age and have gone through so much school and not know how to grow food? Seems pretty ridiculous. Like, I think when you go to school, there's a few things that you should do in addition to just learning. Because, you know, school right now, you basically go and learn to sit there and memorize things. Sit there, be quiet, listen, pay attention, memorize. That's pretty much what school is. I think that by the time you're finished high school, you should have built your own house, grown your own food, learned to collect water in whatever way is locally, you know, available, and figured out how to get electricity. And I think that because we spend so many resources getting kids to sit there still, memorize the stuff that has nothing to do with anything you're doing, and just be bored. But if people had more hands-on stuff, like what if when you started life, you got a little piece of land, and then when you go to school, part of that school is learning all your science and math and biology and all that stuff, but then actually putting it into practice. So you put your physics understanding into practice by actually building a house, and you put your biological studies into practice by growing food, planting things, and you know, it would all become practical and a lot easier to remember than just like knowing this information in text and being like, okay, I don't know how this applies to anything. And in addition to like making it easier to actually remember all this stuff, people would finish school with some, instead of like a whole bunch of debt, they would finish school with something really valuable, which would be like a home, a way to have food. I mean, no government would go for this, at least no government I've ever heard of, because it would make people way harder to control. Because when you teach people to sit there and listen and obey and memorize, it's really easy to control that population. And unfortunately, the leaders of today just want to control people. But if people could come out of school without debt, but instead having a home where they basically have all their survival needs taken care of, and the understanding and the knowledge to take care of it all. That would be, it would wipe out so much of the, inequality between people. I just think that would be a really cool thing. It'd be a much better use of resources than just making people sit there. Especially when you get to the point of like talking about university, college. I mean, so much money goes into that. And then you just come out in debt and with nothing to show for it. I mean, except a piece of paper that says you're a good little listener and doer of what you're told. Chocolatey. Okay, and the argument against this is, if you're maintaining your house and taking care of your gardens, how are you going to do a 40-hour work week or a 60-hour work week? Well, half the point is then you don't need much money. You can just get a part-time job, work a little bit here and there, make money for the things you can't grow or make yourself or whatever. I mean, kind of like what I'm doing here, I guess. And the other argument is, well, who's gonna make all the fancy stuff, work in the factories and all that stuff? People can still do that. You know how much stuff gets wasted right now? Like, if there were like 5% as many factories as there are today, and we just stopped throwing stuff out, it would all level out. And then any extra production that comes from just not making garbage and then figuring out what to do with it would go into just making life better. And plus, people would have so much more free time to actually do creative stuff and not relying on the government to give them a handout and pay for everything. They would just be like, look, I got my little thing here, I'm all taken care of, I got my cool neighbors, they're all taken care of, and we can trade stuff, and money is not like the whole everything, you know? In that kind of society, money would just become this like useful thing that's not the top of everyone's priority list. It would be like 4 or 5, you know? Anyway, I think that would be a cool way to do it. Oh, and in addition to that, when you've got these mad scientists who come up with these crazy ideas of how to make a lot of money by destroying stuff and ruining things, then those mad scientists have to go home and tend to their garden and then actually think about the dirt and the soil and pollution and stuff like that. And maybe it would give them a reason to be less destructive. You know, because there are crazy people out there. Some of them would be beyond help. But there's a lot of people who just don't think about the destruction they're creating. And if they did, and actually had some reason to not do it, a lot of people would change the way they do things. What do you guys think? Yeah, me too. Alright, I'm gonna get back to some digging here.